What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I am, or was, the 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner and the 2018 Innovation Award recipient given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online broadcast in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And I am also the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. Sunday afternoon, June 13th, and most Sunday afternoons around 5 o'clock Eastern time, we do Black Canada Talking. And Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are important to them. And also we like to feature and highlight Black Canadians. Well, we're talking today on the 13th, but a very important day is coming up. Well, there are a few. Father's Day is coming up a week from today, but the day before Father's Day is World Sickle Cell Day. And a few weeks ago, I had a gentleman on, Ulysses, who gave some very good background and very good storytelling and very good information in regards to sickle cell disease. And after that conversation, we had a little chat. I said, why don't we do a little panel discussion a few days before or as close to World Sickle Cell Day with different individuals about sickle cell and different aspects of it. That's why we're here today. So we have an international panel today. We have 3 individuals from Canada and myself, 4 individuals from Canada, and we have a wonderful lady from Maryland. So we're going to have an epic conversation. I'm very excited. And if you have any comments or questions, please, please, please put them to our panel. They would love to interject with you. So first off, I'm going to go outside our country first. A lady I've known through a common associate, gentleman named Mario Armstrong, is Elle Cole. So if Elle Cole could come to our digital stage, introduce herself.
Hello, Dr. Vibe. It is an honor to be on your show today. So thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Can you give a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. So I am a mom of twins. I have 2 daughters who are 12 years old, and one of my daughters is living with sickle cell disease. It is our journey that helped me start my blog because I wanted to share our experiences with other families. And my blog is cleverlychanging.com. And I started that 11 years ago. So I have been advocating and really telling other people about our journey through my blog for 11 years. And recently in 2020, I became an author. I wrote a book for my daughter when she was only 5 years old, and I began to share it with other people. And so I have my book that I published, is actually 2 now, The ABCs of Sickle Cell Disease, and also a coloring book. So the coloring book is a sickle cell coloring book for kids. And it really tells parents and children how to learn more about sickle cell and also what ways that we can take on that will help them stay healthy. And it has been well received by clinicians and families. And so I wanted to share that with your audience today, but it has been a wonderful journey. I am blessed to be the mother to my children, and I'm just so excited to be here today.
Thank you so much to have you. Pleasure. And thank you for taking time from your mother time, your sickle cell advocacy time, your podcast time, your everything all over the place time to be with us today. So we're really happy to have you here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next up, we have Biba Tinga. And this lady is striking in orange today. And the laugh is beautiful. Biba, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Can you just share a little bit about yourself with us?
Yes, sure. Thank you for having me today, Dr. Vibe. It's such a pleasure to be here, especially to meet another mom from the US. It's always exciting. So yes, I'm a mom too. I'm a mom of a young adult living with sickle cell disease. Our journey started in Africa, in West Africa, in Niger, where he was born. And at the time, first of all, when he had his first crisis, it was just, he was misdiagnosed. They thought it was malaria. And then after a week, we went back, and then that's how we discovered. And there was no internet. There were no patient group, patient support group at that time. So I had to learn, I had to educate myself. And I remember the first people I turned to were my friends, who were in med school in first year, and I went through their notes and started reading. And then, crisis after crisis, you learn more, you talk to the medical professionals. And without even knowing, I just had, my initiation to being an advocate for him. But I thought I was just being a mom, raising sickle cell. And then when he was about 15 years old, we moved to Canada. And again, another journey started. I thought, okay, so we're coming, we're leaving from like a developing country to coming to Canada. He got better care, yes, better pain management, and I was able to meet some people in support group, and I was happy. And he came with a growth delay. He started growing up, but I realized that here too we have some issues. There was a lot of things missing for people with sickle cell disease. And I started going to, again, those support group as a parent, but I end up then becoming really an advocate for not only for my son, but today for about 6,000 people living with sickle cell disease in Canada, when I became the president of Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada in November 2016. Now we are advocating on the national scale, trying to make sure that every person living with sickle cell disease gets the best care available. I'm sure we'll talk about it today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your sharing yourself with us. I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Next up, we have Danielle Bonzil. Danielle, it is your time. Come share with us.
Thank you for having me with you today. My journey in sickle cell started, it was a bit of a shock because I have two boys, and my youngest was sick for a few years growing up. When he was a baby, a toddler, he was often in pain. And we were sent home telling us, oh, he's growing up, he'll get out of it. And then at one point we went to the emerge, and we went to the emerge I think three times on the same weekend, and he was not very happy. He was saying my wrist is broken, my elbow is this and that. And then at one point they sent us back home again. We saw a doctor who was from Afghanistan, and he looks at us puzzled. He says, your child has sickle cell? We said, sickle cell what? And then he sent us for testing, and then he sent us to CHIO. And we found out when my youngest was 5 years old that he has sickle cell. So we had all these years we were in the dark about sickle cell. And then life became difficult for a while on many fronts after that. And then we met a sickle cell association people from Montreal, and then we met. We started getting involved with them slowly, and then and I live in the Gatineau area, which is 2 hours, 2 hours and a half from Montreal, and started realizing that there was nothing for sickle cell patients in my area. Any service that we had to go to Ottawa, which is a different province, and cross the river. And in discussion with the president of the Quebec Association, I said there should be something in Gatineau. He says then you'll have to start it. And then that's how a Gatineau chapter was born. And that's how I met Biba, I met Ulysse, and I met many other wonderful people who are also advocates uh, in Ontario, in Quebec, and in Canada. And that's how I have been involved with sickle cell disease.
Thank you so much for sharing. Excellent. And our last friend that we bring up today, Ulysses Guerriere, the man who orchestrated all of this stuff today. Ulysses, it's great to see you as always. Thanks for making this happen. And can you share a little bit about yourself with us?
Hi everyone, thank you for having me, Dr. Vibe. My name is Ulysses Guerrier. From Montreal. I was born in Toronto, raised in Montreal. My parents from Haiti, and I was diagnosed at 2 year old of sickle cell disease as beta thalassemia. And during a vacation, my parents was on vacation in Haiti. When I was in Toronto, in Montreal, they didn't know what was wrong with me when I was growing up. So on a vacation, and I got a crisis there, and I got diagnosed by Dr. Yvette Bonny. well-renowned doctor. She's a mentor of mine, idol, a second mom, and she became my doctor, pediatrician when I moved back to Montreal. So yeah, I come from a family of 5 children. Two of my siblings passed away from sickle cell disease. So sickle cell disease and sickle cell advocacy and all of that, it's part of my life, of my day to day, and it's my mission to make sure that sickle cell disease get the recognition that it deserves, and that we can move the needle from the time that I'm in this earth until I pass on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all of you. This my first conversation pieces, and anyone can jump in, because there may be a lot of people that don't know what sickle cell is. Who would like to tell us what sickle cell is? Who would like to jump in?
I'll take it. Sickle cell disease, in English and in French, it's anémie falciforme or drépanocytose for Quebec listeners and French listeners worldwide. So basically, sickle cell disease is a mutation of the red blood cell. So to make a long story short, due to malaria, back in ancient time, our body, with evolution, our body mutated to be able to help us fight malaria. And what happens, like the normal red cell is like an oval shape, or think about like a donut without the hole in the middle. And a sickle cell, it look like a crescent, or you can think about a banana. So basically what happened is like the normal red cell is very malleable and very fluid. So when it goes to the vessel, it goes without any problem. With the sickle cell, with the sickle cell shape like a banana or a crescent, when it goes to the vessel, it blocks. There's a lack of oxygen, and it creates inflammation, and that inflammation create pain. Pain is the most common symptoms of sickle cell disease. And then there could be complication that could bring you to organ failure. But essentially, wherever you have blood circulating in your body, you can have a sickle cell. We call it sickle cell crisis, which is like an episode when people have tremendous pain, and the pain level is, to give you guys an example, for people that know people that have cancer and that's been in terminal phase, they will say like a sickle cell crisis is imagine that pain but 10 times worse. So to give you like an idea of the amount of pain that people with sickle cell disease go through during a sickle cell crisis.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask this question to each one of you, and 3 of you are parents, and Ulysses, you are dealing or challenging and overcoming this right now. So I want to start off with Elle. How has sickle cell impacted you as a parent? Oh, you're on mute. Okay, there we go.
I think sickle cell for me was definitely, it was life-changing to find out that my daughter had the diagnosis. So my husband and I, when we met, we did not know that we had the sickle cell trait, which is the gene, one of the genes that you can pass on in our daughter's case, she inherited the S gene from me and the S gene from her father. And so she now has hemoglobin SS, which is sickle cell anemia. And I think that learning that, what is just ironic and amazing is that no other family members that we know of actually have sickle cell disease. And so it's been a learning curve all along this journey, because I have to meet people who have been dealing with this disease in order to learn how to take care of my daughter. And so it's not something that I have firsthand knowledge of. And when I saw her have her first crisis, it was the most painful and debilitating experience I've ever had. And so I think, you want to make sure that your children don't go through pain. And as a parent, when you see your child in this state and you can't do anything to help, it's very troubling. And so it not only affects the patient, but it affects everyone in the family, because you have to, do what you can to keep your child healthy. You have to go to doctor's appointments. You have to make sure that they are getting qualitative and great care. So you have to interview doctors, because you can't just go to anybody. You have to go to someone who has a foundational knowledge of what this disease is and how to treat it. And so I would say that it's affected everybody in my family. For me, it's changed my career. I actually became an entrepreneur because of my daughter having sickle cell disease, because I needed that flexibility. So it's really changed my whole life. It's changed my outlook on life and how I interact and communicate with others. So anybody who meets me, they learn something about sickle cell disease.
Thank you, Elle. Next up, Biba. How has this impacted you as a parent?
Whew, where do I
Okay.
start? In my case, I had my child. I was very young. I was just about to turn 19 when I had him. So, and he was my first child, with sickle cell. So it just changed the whole course of my life. Even what I choose to study after that, was based on his health. As she just explained now, is that what Elle just said is that you need the flexibility. You just cannot afford to live like other people. You cannot, or like you cannot plan anything, because sickle cell crises are unpredictable. And also sickle cell crises are very painful. So for every parent to see your child cry and you can't help them, of course, the trauma that you go through, is there. So I think I've started my life always being stressed, always being scared, and always trying to fix things that I couldn't control. Then I had to make life choices. Of course, I didn't get married with his dad. I had, another partner who does not have sickle cell trait. So I have three other children who do not have sickle cell disease, but one of them has sickle cell trait. So all my whole life, I had to make decision, always taking sickle cell disease into consideration. So, and then also I had to stay home for 9 years because I chose to have a family, a larger family, because I wanted these kids, the older siblings, not to be affected by the fact that I was spending a week at the hospital with, the older brothers. So it was my decision. So it was my responsibility to make sure that everyone was okay in the family. But now they are all young adults. So, I'm working full time. So yes, it affected the way I plan, life around the family, my future, the future for the other kids. Like I recently asked my daughter, I said, I hope I'm not putting too much pressure on you guys, raising you to be like your brother's keepers, And she said, we don't know any different. So I don't know what it is to have, to not have a sibling who is sick. So I know that one day I have to do something, and I have to maybe pick him up or drive him or do something. And this is exactly where I'm going to take this opportunity to say that our community needs to, pay attention to that. Sickle cell disease is a genetic disease, meaning that if you know your sickle cell status, when it comes the time to have kids, you can make, a decision, regarding that. You have to know. You have to make sure that you know your sickle cell status. And also, I'm sure when Ulyss is going to talk, he's going to attest to this. When you become a young adult, yes, people are living longer, but what about the quality of life? What about the quality of life? So I have a young adult, he's a young professional, he lives on his own, but it's heavy. The burden, the disease burden is heavy on the people living with them, heavy on the family, and that's why we are always advocating for them. They need support. We need our government to step up, and close the gap in the care for sickle cell disease.
Thank you, Biba. We will certainly, before we end off this conversation, ask each one of you calls to action from the government, from our community. Next up, Danielle, how's it impacted your life?
One difficult time was when my youngest was in elementary school. He missed a lot of school back then. We even in his most difficult year was when he was in grade 5. In grade 5, he didn't attend school from school starts end of August finishes in early June. So he didn't set foot in school until November. He was sick. He was hospitalized for a few weeks, and then he came home, and we were tending to him 24/7, almost, with crisis, with pain that wouldn't go. So, but we got out of this very difficult trial when he was in grade 5, and but many things changed. Employment had to change for both my wife and myself. My wife eventually accepted a position where she could work more from home. Um, I wanted a traditional job where I could go to work on 9 to 5 and so on. And I had to say goodbye to that. I was working for myself as a translator interpreter for a while, and then I became a freelancer. So it it changes also your relationship with the any other children that you have. We have a first boy, and he's doing good now. But growing up, it we had tension in the home because why is the little younger one having all this attention? And when he was in crisis, we couldn't say, "Oh, okay, let's go and do something with my other one at this time." And we had times where we took turns in the hospital, staying where I stayed 2, 3, 4 days, and then my wife came in, stayed the weekend while I tried to do things with my son. And then when we switched, she tried to do things with my other son. It was a complicated part of our lives. And then at some point it got better, and then and when it got better, it also coincided with the time when we started to get involved with the association. Maybe someone up there wanted to give us a nudge to be more and more involved. So as a parent, having a child with sickle cell is a really different reality than that of other parents.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And Ulysses, you have been overcoming this from day one. How has it changed your life, and what are some of the impacts that you have to live with day to day?
Well, day to day for me, it's pain. I live with pain on a like constant basis. I'm talking to you right now. I'm in pain, so um, I would say pain is the most challenging part. Another part about it is like growing up, not being able to do certain things. Um, when I was growing, like doctors, and healthcare professionals will discourage us to do physical activity. They didn't know at the time that physical activity was actually beneficial for us, but it's just that it had to be done with moderation. So, but I was always like a daredevil, and I was always like a rebel. So I still tried to do physical activity regardless, but I always paid the price afterwards. So it was literally like, having a sense of like wanting to be normal, wanting to do what everybody else is doing. Um, and the thing for me growing up, it made me like do things outside of my comfort zone, like pushing the envelope a lot, putting myself in at risk where like life and death situation. As an example, like I'll go clubbing and then go straight to emerge. As an example. In my younger days. I I don't do that anymore,
Oh,
but I
you're
still
still
go
young,
out.
man. You're still young. You're just wiser now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I still go out, but I mean, like I don't do like irrational things that I used to do when I was growing up. So, as an example, the work environment that's been very challenging because um, I don't think there's one employer out there that understand the challenges of sickle cell disease and that also provide accommodation for us. The government, like when we talk about disability, sickle cell disease is not listed as a disability. Those are like challenges where we're not able to get things that um, other people able to get, like in terms of being able to have uh, I guess help with day-to-day quality of life. That's the word I was looking for. It's my bad. So our quality of life is very impeded by the disease. But at the end of the day, we have to try to overcome it and take it one day at a time. And like I was saying to you, like this morning I woke up, I was feeling like so, and then in the afternoon, I had more pain. It was very very hard. Now it's a bit better, but it's it's a constant roller coaster. You never know what you're gonna get. So, or it's like a chocolate, like in the movie Forrest Gump. Life is like a chocolate box. You never know what you're gonna get. So for sickle cell, for me, that's the way it is.
Wow.
So my day is like a chocolate box. I never know what I'm gonna get.
Wow. Well, folks, we're going to take a quick little break for a few moments to give everyone a rest. And when we come back from the break, I'd like to know from each one of you, when did you decide to become an advocate? Because 3 of you, parents of children with sickle cell, let's say you've been living with, when did you decide that, you know what, I need to do more? Because it sounds either living with it day to day, you already got enough going on in your life. But when did you decide to become an advocate, and why? So after the break, we'll come back. We'll start with that question with Elle. You're watching Black Canada Talking with Dr. Vibe. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, and it is Black Canada Talking time. Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes on stories, POVs that are of importance to them, or we showcase Black Canadians are doing their thing.
The real aspect of what goes on behind the walls or behind the fence is a totally different persona and a totally different picture.
There was just a big sense of relief when we finally got there.
We have to realize that everything we do is going to have an impact on probably a lot of people we don't even know.
One of the mandates of the CBC is to reflect Canada back to itself.
Not a lot of sustainable long-term movement that will affect economic change.
God bless, peace well, keep the faith, and walk good. Okay, we are back. It's Dr. Vibe here, host of Black Canada Talking, and we are talking about sickle cell and also talking about World Sickle Cell Day, and we have a wonderful panel of guests. So we've got them all back here, all their smiling selves. So let's continue our conversation today, and we're going to start off with Elle. Elle, when did you decide, and why did you decide to say, okay, I'm a parent with a child with sickle cell, but I want to do more?
I like to say that I didn't choose to advocate. Advocacy chose me. And I think when you have a child who has a health condition, you want to make it better. I want my daughter to grow up to have the same quality of life as a child that doesn't have sickle cell. I want her to know that she can dream big and do what she wants. And early on, I realized if that is going to be a reality for her, I have to do something to help increase the funding, help make sure more research is done to really get the word out there. And so I try to raise awareness because I want my daughter's life to matter, to just be full of promise and hope. And so it's not, I wouldn't say, I guess other parents can feel like, hey, my child has this disease and I'm just not going to tell anybody. Well, that's one way to look at it. But for me, I felt like I had to share with other people because for my daughter, she's actually living well. And, just changing her diet and doing different things has really helped make a big difference in her life. And I felt like I had to share that with other people, our particular experience, so that if it can help somebody else, allow it to do so. And so that's why I share. And I feel like I don't have any other choice. This is what I was born to do. And I feel like it's directly connected with my purpose in life. And so I'm fulfilling my purpose because of this particular experience.
Oh, thank you for that share, Biba.
When did I become an advocate?
And
you know,
why?
and why? Okay. The funny thing is, I think I've been an advocate for a long time. I just didn't know what that was being an advocate. When my son was about 1 year old, maybe less than 2 years old, the head nurse in Niger called me and said, from what we've seen so far, he's had about 7 to 6 crises, and every time he gets into the hospital, we have to give him blood. So your son, is going to have this type of complication where he's going to need blood for the course of his life. And she said, well, I got good and bad news for you. We know what to do, how to do blood transfusion here. But sometimes because sickle cell is unpredictable, we just don't have the blood. So she says, and that's when you need to help. I'm like, so how will I help? She goes, well, the blood bank in the hospital, what they do is that you have to go in your family, in your network, and recruit blood donors. And then every time, no matter what the blood type is, it doesn't matter. Just get somebody to come and donate blood. And if they do donate blood, then in exchange, we're gonna make sure that we keep the equivalent for your son. So every time he has a crisis, there'll be blood for him. Imagine that. I was just 19 years old. I was in college. I was looking for life, sometimes, going clubbing like Ulysses used to do, right? But then I found myself having to go into a community where people have this cultural belief, or sometimes because of religious belief, that they don't want to donate blood, and convince them to come. I spent some of my Saturdays sitting in the hospital, making sure that this friend who said he was going to donate blood is actually donating the blood. That becomes, when you step out and you support the healthcare system that is supposed to treat you, you are already advocating, telling people, because I had to know sickle cell, explain to them and convince them to donate the blood. So later on, again, when we moved to Canada, I didn't move to Canada because I was seeking for better care. I was just living my life, So I live in a few countries in West Africa, then I live in the US, in New York, before coming to Canada. But when we got here, the first thing I did, I wanted to connect with other parents like me, just, to talk, to know, to have tips on how to, deal with sickle cell, and just for my son to be able to talk to people who have the same condition as him. And then I found myself, sitting there, and Mr. Sanon, Wilson Sanon, the president of the Quebec Association, just pointed and said, you are coming with me to this meeting, and one meeting after another. You realize, why do we advocate? We advocate because we want our voices to be heard. We advocate because we want to protect our loved one. And when we realize that, there is not newborn screening everywhere, because if Ulysses was diagnosed at 5 years old, I believe, it's because there was no newborn screening. And when later on my son grew up and decided to go to college in Sudbury, Ontario, there was no physician who could treat him in Sudbury, Ontario. So he had to do his blood works in a lab, and they would send it back to his doctor in Montreal, and his doctor will call another physician. So I realized, I said, it doesn't make sense. I left Africa. I am not in Africa, I'm in Canada. How come it's not in the curriculum when they are training those doctors who are supposed to treat us? And then again, you realize that, sickle cell disease, was discovered in 1910. So in 2009, it was 100 years since we discovered sickle cell disease. AIDS came after that. But today, you don't die if you have AIDS. You can survive. You can have a good life. Well, I would say you have quality of life. You're not in pain everywhere. Ulysses is sitting with us today saying that he's in pain. We have a problem there. So that's why I became an advocate. I became an advocate because I think it's not okay in the world that we live today for somebody to die at age 50. It's not okay for somebody to always be in pain. It's not okay for them to not be able to live like any other Canadian. It's not okay.
Thank you for the passion behind that. Danielle, how and why? Oh, you're on mute.
Oh,
There we go.
am I still on mute?
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So I was invited by Wilson Sanon to an event, and then I started translating material for what was going on the website of the Quebec Sickle Cell Association. And then, as I pointed out earlier, I was attending and finding out about all these things going on in Montreal, and I asked the question. I said, "When is something happening in Gatineau?" And then he says, "It's going to happen when you organize it, when you do it." Okay, so from this conversation, some time elapsed, and then I had a meeting, and then I remember I used to teach French at a Spanish school uh, in Gatineau that offers a French immersion to people from Mexico who come to Canada for the summer to take French classes, and I asked them to borrow one of the classrooms for a meeting. And Wilson came with two or three other people, and then we had a nurse from Ottawa who was sympathetic to the cause as well. My spouse was with me. Her two sisters came along, and then the Gatineau group started there, and we haven't stopped since. And that was ooh, I'm trying to remember the time, but I would say it's been 5 6 years now, and we hope to continue to be involved because as Biba has mentioned, as Elle has mentioned, there is so much to be done for first for our child, for my son who has sickle cell, but in the community as well for the others who have sickle cell. If we wait for government, for municipalities to do something, we're going to wait for a long time. So the best way is to get involved and then to become a militant. That's the best way to get things moving. So that's why I'm involved.
Thank you, Danielle. Ulyss?
Uh, um, for me, it started when I was 10 years old. Dr. Boney came to my bedroom, and she was doing like the regular morning rounds. And she came to me. She asked, like, "Would you be interested in being a patient to help educate the young doctors about sickle cell disease? Because we don't. Number one, we don't have a lot of you, and number two, I asked a lot of people, and nobody wanted to. And I know, like, you're like my son, and if I ask you, you're gonna do it. So, and like, crack a couple of jokes, and then she said, okay, somebody got to do it, and might as well be you. So I started like that, being like the case, um, like on a case study, being the patient that goes to the auditorium with other doctors and showcasing what the disease look like, what a crisis look like. That started from there, and afterwards, um, at the age of 14, I got introduced to the sickle cell, the Canadian Sickle Cell Society in Montreal. By that was funded by Rosetta Cadogan, and so meeting Miss Cadogan, I got to learn, a little bit more about sickle cell, and got to meet other people, other individuals that have sickle cell, and from that point on, excuse me, I became like a volunteer. Started to like I was enrolled to a camp, and I became like a camp counselor. And at the age of 16, I became a board member, and I've been doing sickle cell work since. And when my brother passed away, that became more of a mission of life for me to make sure that the cause and of sickle cell disease get to the next level and get noticed, the awareness, big change. Um, like, this is a disease that's been around since the Pharaoh time. We're talking about over 7,000 years ago. Like in the 1910, that's when they discovered it in North America. But it's been around for a long time, and has to be the change has to be done by us. It's for us, by us, and everybody else will join in afterwards. So we have to be the one to care for ourselves, and then
Okay.
our ally will join.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, each one of you. My next conversation piece is the support that's out there for people that are going through this challenge. How has it changed, good, better, or not, from the time you got involved? So the support's out there. And I think I'll add on to that. How has the pandemic impacted people who are going through this? So two-part question. How are the supports from change? Have they gotten better or worse? And how has the pandemic impacted those in the sickle cell community? Al, I'll start with you first.
Okay, so for me in the US, there's like every state has a community-based organization. So there, of course, is a national organization called the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America, and that's in Baltimore, Maryland. But there are lots of foundations and organizations that exist in every state. However, it can be hard connecting with them. And so if you're having trouble connecting with them, you have to keep reaching out. It's better when you know somebody who gives you direct contact to meet other people. And that's really how I've been able to advocate more with other organizations, by actually meeting people, going to events and things like that. When my daughter was first born, there wasn't a lot of things out there. As far as treatments, there was really just one, but now it's been more than 10 years later, and there are multiple medications, there's multiple treatments, multiple support groups, multiple organizations around the world, more literature. There's just so many more things that are blossoming. I also want to note that during the pandemic, the Be the Match, which is a organization here in America, they started to provide mental health services to people with sickle cell disease. At first, they only did it for people who had bone marrow transplants, but then they opened it up during the pandemic for everybody, because the pandemic was really tough on caregivers' mental health as well as patients' mental health. Just having a chronic illness all the time is challenging, mentally and emotionally. And so I will say that things have definitely gotten better. It's not where it needs to be, but it's getting better. And I want to just acknowledge that there are organizations like the Sickle Cell Community Consortium here in America that helps to connect people all over the US, so that, and in other parts of the world, because you can join that agency and organization wherever you are. And so I've learned so much by partnering with them and been able to just kind of expand. And so those are just some of the support groups and resources that exist here.
Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of perspective from down south, as we call it. Biba?
Well, so definitely I can say that, even for the past, just the 17 years that I've been in Canada, I've seen a lot of change, right? Now we have a patient group almost in every province in Canada, so you can reach out to them, attend activities. And the difference is that if you have a child diagnosed with sickle cell now through the newborn screening, you can really reach out to talk to somebody who has been through the same experience or is living that. So in that sense, with the community-based organization, I think we have a network where we know each other. Like Daniel said, he met Ulysse, he met me. So we connect and we talk to each other and we support each other. But now, on the other side, when you look at the care for sickle cell disease in Canada, I think our government needs to step up and fill the gap. There is really, because there is a lack of resources, for the patient organization. That means there's a lot of things they cannot cover. They cannot give you like psychological support or any other kind of support by anyway. So, and when the pandemic hit, what happened? I think the sickle cell community was one of the most vulnerable one, but was also the one that was forgotten. I remember on the personal experience, my son is an essential worker. And of course, I panicked. I said, you have sickle cell. If you get this virus, at that time, we had no information about the virus. I said, you got to go see your doctor. You can't continue to work, because he works in a pharmacy. I said, the first thing somebody does, if they have a flu symptom or whatever, they don't know it's COVID, they walk into the pharmacy and, you can get this disease. Well, sickle cell was not on the list. they will not remove him from work. And it took them 60 days, 60 full days for him to work. And we as a family has to come together and have our own plan. So his younger brother drive him to avoid, like for him to take the bus, and I will pick him up and I will go do his groceries. He was only going from work to home. It's only after 60 days, and it took his employer to take the decision to say, you stay home, I'm going to remove you because I can protect you. You have to work. And then there is no way. So he was able to stay home. That shows us that, you know what? In Canada, sickle cell is a forgotten disease. So when the pandemic hit, we also realized that because sickle cell disease, has Yuli said, you're gonna have a crisis, unpredictable crisis. They were still sick, they were still having crisis. They needed blood transfusion, they needed to go to the ER. But guess what? They changed the whole protocol. Nobody can go with them. And sometimes these young adults will go and seek for medication, and they will be like stigmatized and, called drug seekers, and we couldn't go with them. So it changed the whole perspective, and it makes it again more and more important for us as a community to come together, unite, and advocate as one. We need to set priorities and sit and say, from Alberta to Montreal to Vancouver, wherever you are, this is what is important, and this is what we're going to advocate for. Standard cares for everyone. Everywhere you go, you're going to get the same exact care and the best quality of care.
Thank you. Thank you. Danielle, same question.
Yes. What I see, for example, around me, Chio, which is in Ottawa, the other province that is close to me, they have all the services. And if they didn't exist in Gatineau, and if there were not partnerships between the province of Quebec and Ontario, we would have been faced with the choice that if we want care for our son, we need to move to the other province. And parents have told us about that. Those who live in other parts of Quebec that are a bit more remote, they told us they had to go to Montreal. They had to get closer to a downtown, to a center, because where they are, there is nothing. And we are also faced with the fact that CHIO offers very good care, very comprehensive support services. But when my son turns 18, which is in 2 years now, I will have there is not that partnership with the hospitals and the services in Ottawa. So what will I do? I will have to tell my son to move to Ottawa, or I have 2 years to move to Ottawa. So there are complications. There is a lot of that needs to be done before we can say that sickle cell patients, sickle cell families have services like other Canadians do. The we have quite a few steps to go up before that happens.
Thank you so much, Ulyss.
The pandemic has been very challenging because it created it brought a spotlight to the issue and to the gaps that we face on a regular basis. As an example, the fact that on a regular we had to advocate for ourselves. But what helped is the fact that you had family members with you, or patient advocate with you, or patient organization speaking on your behalf, etc. Now, to the pandemic, you couldn't have visitors at all. So now you have to advocate for yourself. Imagine originally, like, they don't believe you when you say you're in pain. And the stigma is that, we are drug seekers because we take narcotics. We're talking about high level of medication, like, OxyContin, oxycodone, fentanyl, which is like, the poster child for the drug. Help me, guys.
Opioid crisis.
Thank you.
The opioid crisis.
Yeah, so fentanyl is like the poster child for that. And this is one of the medication that some of the sickle cell clients patients are taking. And when you go to emerge and you ask for, because can you imagine, like, I've been taking opioids since I was 10. So now I'm 45. 2 milligrams of morphine for a regular person that goes to emerge, it's like a tic tac for me. You know what I mean? I cannot take 2 milligrams of morphine. I have to take something like 20. But when they ask for 20, they're gonna look at you like 20 is like it's a lot, or we're not gonna give you 20, we're gonna give you 5. 5 still not gonna do nothing. You understand? So it's like now you have to keep challenging the doctors, challenging the nurses, and then they don't like to be told what to do. So it's like, you're going to tell me how to do my job. So now it's always a confrontation. Now if you, okay, think about it for a second. You're in pain. We're talking about an amount of pain that's 10 times worse than somebody that has cancer in terminal phase. You're going to emerge. You have to speak to explain that, okay, this is what I need, this is what works for me, can I get this? And because of lack of knowledge around the disease, they they will challenge you on giving you what you need. And the issue is like, if you're not getting the proper response in terms of getting the right amount of medication aggressively in the beginning, you end up staying in the hospital longer than you need to. So that issue end up being, usually, like, because we know the issue, I will bring somebody with me when I'm going to the hospital and when I'm in a crisis. So because I'm halfway, like, I'm drowsy because I've been taking medication to be able to fight it at home, but it comes to a point where you're fighting at home, it's not working, so you need to go in. So you're going in, and you don't look your best, and it's like you being judged automatically as soon as you come to triage. Like, they're looking at you, the way you dress, how you look, how you there's the term they call how the patient presents. So do I look like I'm in pain? Am I crying? Am I kicking? Am I screaming? um and funny anecdote, it's like I broke my wrist one time, and when I went to the hospital, they saw that my hand was like swollen, and like the reaction that the way that they treated me when I went in for my broken wrist, it's it's the way that I would like them to treat me when I'm going in for a sickle cell crisis. Like, they responded like right away. It took like literally 5 minutes, and I was getting taken care of. When I'm going for a sickle cell crisis, on average, I wait 3 hours on average, and that's on a good day. So you can wait even longer. But imagine, I'm gonna put it plain for people that don't deal with pain on a regular basis. Imagine you have like a migraine or a toothache or something. Anybody that deals with pain, when you are in pain, you always, like, you irritable, you don't have patience, like, there's you don't feel your best. And it's like you get irritated like real quick. So imagine you're going to the hospital, and then they're asking you the same question over and over again, and you're not getting the response that you need. It's very frustrating. So that's on a regular basis. So now when the pandemic happened, no visitors. So you have to go on your own, deal with whatever you have to deal with. And now, if you were getting mistreated before the pandemic, what do you think happening now with the pandemic? So I'll let that to for you guys' imagination. So that really brought a spotlight to the issue of lack of care. The other thing is, like, we have a shortage of hematologists specializing in sickle cell disease. So right now there's not enough in the system itself. So that creates another issue, because your regular family doctor, um, a lot of family doctors or the family physician, they're not comfortable prescribing narcotics. So now you have to have either pain specialist to prescribe you narcotics, or a specialist like a hematologist to prescribe you narcotics. So if there's a shortage in those fields for specializing in sickle cell, you can imagine, like, how challenging this can be. There's not enough money in terms of, like, research going into sickle cell. There's no money in terms of, like, injecting to organization, advocacy organization that works in sickle cell disease. So there's a lot of gaps. Yes, things have improved to some degree in terms of treatment. When I say improve, in terms of, like, it's well known now compared to back then, but essentially the treatment has been the same for over 40 years. So Yeah,
All right.
I will stop
Fantastic.
here.
Thank you very much. So,
Dr. Vibe,
yeah.
Dr. Vibe, I would like to make a comment. Remember at the beginning what he told you, Ulysse? He said, I'm not a doctor, so I cannot give any information. And this is a teachable moment because he just showed us that when you live over all this time with a condition, you become an expert by experience. And today, Ulysse, you are an expert. So anytime if you get asked again to talk about sickle cell, please do, because nobody could have done it better than you. Just so you know, I wanted to say that.
Oh, well done. So I have to call him Dr. Ulysse now. All right. You have been crowned, my brother. You've been crowned. Well, I know we come to the top of the hour. Can we get just a few more minutes out of each of you? Is that possible? Okay, fantastic. So what I'm going to do, there's actually a question from the audience, and I'll let anyone who wants to answer it. The question is from Sarah. What are your thoughts on the stigma surrounds sickle cell disease? That's why I asked if you could stay along for a few minutes before I ask that
I'll make it short. It's been there from the time I was born till today. So it hasn't changed much, I would say.
And then that stigma, it goes both ways. It is within the community itself first. You have to deal with it, and that's why so many people don't want even to disclose that they have sickle cell disease, because you're gonna be looked at. Especially I come from Africa, where parents will say, well, nobody's going to marry my daughter, so they don't want to disclose that. And of course, that's a problem, because I tell them, well, it's not her fault if she has the trait. And then if she has a child with sickle cell, that means the other person too, the partner also has the sickle cell trait. So, the guilt is always put on one gender and not the other one in some communities. And also another thing is that, with the lack of education, on the side of the healthcare professionals, some nurses will come and they've never seen, like they see somebody like Ulysse coming and they've never treated a sickle cell patient, and he's asking for his 20 milligram. Of course, there's this tall black man standing there and demanding from drugs. Look how it looks like. So that is going to end only when we keep educating everybody. And we also have to educate the general population, as they said, for them to go and look for a job. There is not much information and understanding, and they're going to be treated like label as lazy, or, they want to take advantage of the system. All that comes together and makes their life so difficult, so difficult. So the stigma is there, and the only way is awareness and education.
Excellent. Anyone else? Go ahead, Elle.
Yes, I wanted to speak to that, because here in the U.S., one of the things that Ulysse touched on is the ER and how people are treated. And I think a lot of times here, even though there is written protocols, people aren't following them. And so it is that education, not just, we're having these conversations in our community like we are now, but we have to get health professionals to attend these conversations too. They have to hear from the patients and their families more, because academics may say one thing, but living it and experiencing it is not the same. And so we have to demand as a community, we have to get more laws passed, and we have to do it just from every grassroots level that's possible. So from a people to people in your community, then healthcare, then legislation, I feel like all of us has a role to play, every single one of us. And some of us may be more comfortable on the legislative side, and some of us are going to do better by having conversations with our friends. But each and every one of us, as a person that knows something about sickle cell, we have a part to play, and we have to speak up. We have to use our voices, put our money and our dollars where our mouth is. So, money is what makes changes. And so when our community, when we're supporting organizations and supporting laws that back these causes that mean so much to us, that's when we'll see real change happen.
Daniel, anything you want to add?
Yes, and the stigma, for example, is the reason why my wife and I never knew about sickle cell. But the year that I found out that my son has sickle cell, I find out that my father, that I didn't grow up with, came from a family where three people have sickle cell. One was sickle cell SS, and two of them SC. So that's how come I have this gene. But on my mom's side of the family, since my mother and my biological father were separated when I was just a few months, they never spoke about anything concerning that side of the family. And they never, nobody ever mentioned, oh, yeah, there is something called sickle cell disease. And then when all this happened, suddenly all of that came out. And then I called an aunt that I had never knew growing up, and she said, yes, we have suffered with sickle cell disease in Haiti. And then she started telling me stories, and I'm going, why didn't I find this out when I was growing up? And this is how the culture of secret has perpetuated a problem where people are not even aware that they're carrying the trait of a disease, and are carrying and are then giving it to their children.
Okay. Excellent. Well, this will be my last conversation piece. You've all been so kind to give some extra time to the audience. So, final thoughts, and we'll go in the same order. And what I'd like to get from you is final thoughts, any calls to action, whether it's to government, whether it's to the community, whether it's to the medical profession. Just want to get some final thoughts from each one of you. So we'll start with Ms. L first.
So my call to action for everybody is there is something that we all can do, and that's give blood. So for many sickle cell patients, they get blood transfusions to actually help them get through their lives. And so we need more people of color who are willing to donate blood. So many of us run blood drives. I know World Sickle Cell Day, if you look it up, you will find a blood drive in your area because we need more blood donors. I personally, I write books about sickle cell to educate people because there are people all over the world who don't know about it, but it is the most common genetic disorder in this world. And so it should be one that every person knows about and talks about. And so I have a new book that's coming out. And it's for preteens and teens. It's called The Ultimate Sickle Cell Activity Book. And so I just want you guys, wherever you are, you can definitely check it out. It will be available after World Sickle Cell Day on Amazon. But I have my other books as well to educate people, because just like Daniel mentioned, he didn't know he had the sickle cell trait. I didn't know either. And so now there is newborn screening that in the US in 2006, all states now do newborn screening, but that wasn't the case before. It wasn't the case when I was born. And so I just challenge people to also get to know your genotype. You need to know whether or not you carry the trait before you procreate, because you want to have children with that knowledge. You want to be able to make that a wise choice and a decision, and not be really put in that position with no choice. And so those are my call to actions.
Well, Elle, thank you so much. And if the producer can just put up Elle's website, Cleverly Changing, because you'll find all things Elle at the Cleverly Changing website. If you can just put that up before we move on to Biba.
Yes. So I'm going to talk to the community first, the sickle cell community. So my call will be, let's come together as one and work together. The reason why it's important is that, so if sickle cell was discovered in 1910, and we've had all this organization working all this time, yes, they did a great job, right? Raising awareness, supporting people living with sickle cell. But we're still, struggling for 40 years with only supportive care, no access to the new drugs available, and people like Ulysse are complaining about the stigma and the lack of education on the healthcare provider side. So there is something that's missing there. How do we do it? It's only when we come together as one. So people always say, well, maybe they want us to become members and then we lose, we are not independent, tell us what to do. No. Being united and speaking with one voice means that we do the same thing at the same time, even if we are not in the same room. Just think about it on June 19, if every single person from the community asked for the same thing, and we continue to ask over and over again, and we stand up as one, change will happen. We want newborn screening. We started. Now we have two provinces not screening for sickle cell. It's Manitoba and Saskatchewan. they need to get on board. We have 4 new drugs specifically, targeting sickle cell disease, approved by the US FDA. None of them are available in Canada yet. We have to put that. There is only one drug for sickle cell patients, it's hydroxyurea, and it's a cancer drug. And sometimes there is a shortage. Health Canada needs to put it on the list of essential drugs so that that never happens, because some people have to take it for the course of their lives. And now we have to know that democracy is about number. And what we have in our community, we just have numbers. We're here. We are a large community. But only when we're going to stand as one together and show that we are united, that's when our needs, that's when we're going to be considered. Otherwise, the message gets diluted, from Ontario to Alberta to BC to Quebec, everybody is saying something different. It doesn't work. So please, let's unite and advocate with one strong, unified voice.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me today.
No problem. If the producer can just put the website address for the Sickle Cell Disease Association of Canada, that is where you can get in contact with Biba and her great team. Next up, Danielle.
The others have said such wonderful things. I want to give a call of action to dads, because in meetings, in things that are happening, we see that the women are at the forefront of the majority of efforts and things that are being done, and fathers need to step in more, not only for sickle cell, but for being involved with their sons, with their daughters, with their communities even more. And we need to change the image of the Black man that Black men have in our communities by portraying something positive, by portraying that we are actors of change. So dads out there, please support sickle cell associations, and please give um, good examples that your sons and daughters can follow.
Love it. Good stuff. Ulysses, you're going to finish us up.
Well, my call to action is for the community to get informed. Number one, get to know what sickle cell is, understand what it is, and each one teach three. Next, I would like to bring the attention to the community. We need your support. We need your help so that we can get Bill 233, the Improve Access to Healthcare Act 2020, to pass. It's a bill that was put forward by MPP Jill Andrews and MPP France Gelina from the NDP. And June 19 is considered, it was proclaimed Sickle Cell Awareness Day in Canada on the federal level. And this year in Ontario, they're gonna the PC government will make it official that June 19 is considered Sickle Cell Awareness Day in Ontario. So having a day, it's great to help raise the awareness, but it's not enough. We need more. And that bill, the Improve Access to Healthcare Act, is one step deeper to be able to increase and change the healthcare system in terms of when individuals that are living with sickle cell goes to the emerge, they can be treated properly and promptly. And this is what we need to be able to change the narrative, change the stigma, and help with our quality of life. Because if without this act, without the change in the healthcare system with this bill, when we go to emerge, on average, we have a hospital stay of about 5 to 10 days. With this bill, if they're able to implement it properly, and when we're talking about going to any hospital in Ontario, and we're looking towards the future, and Ms. Biba will hopefully take it on and to be able to put it on the federal level so that we can go anywhere in Canada, that if you have a sickle cell, so you go to a hospital, they know what sickle cell is and they know how to treat you, and they know how to treat you properly. So that would save the government money in terms of the cost on the healthcare system, because you can go from spending an average of 5 to 10 days in the hospital to 24 hours to 3 days. We're talking about 24 hours to 72 hours. If this is being done the right way, the time length that we spend in the hospital will be very short. So the amount of savings that we give to the healthcare system and to the government is tremendous. So it's something that it's not hard to do. It's just we need the will of the people and the will of the government. And if the people go behind it, go on the website, you put it there, you can put your name on the petition to say that we need this, we need the healthcare to change, and we need the access for the access for the individual living with sickle cell, so they can get prompt treatment. Well, we can change the game just by helping with the helping by changing the quality of life. That we don't have to be afraid of going to the hospital. We don't have to be worried that we'll be mistreated, and we don't have to worry that they don't know what they're doing. So all of those fear will go away, and it will improve. It will change the game.
Great words to end off with. I'd like to say thank you, Elle. Thank you, Biba. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Ulyss, for all you have done, all you are doing, and all you will be doing in regards to sickle cell. Again, myself, my audience would like to say thank you immensely, not only for the time you took today and continuous work. You always have a home here, so please use this platform to push this to where it needs to go. Just want to say
thank you for having us.
My pleasure. So have a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's Dr. Vibe here. I'm host, producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I am the host of the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And I am the Global Food and Drink Initiative board chair, and that's a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. I'd like to thank everyone who watched us live today. Thank you so much for your contributions. Shout out to Sarah, Patrina, I hope I got your name right. Also Belinda, Gary, Ryan, everyone else. I forgot. If I didn't say hello, it was because of my head, not my heart. So as always, I like to end off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. And remember, love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace. Big shout out to BIA Media for the continuous great production of Black Canada Talking. God bless. Peace well. Keep the faith and walk good. Cheers, everybody. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, and it is Black Canada Talking time. Black Canada Talking is a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes on stories, POVs that are of importance to them, or we showcase Black Canadians who are doing their thing.
The real aspect of what goes on behind the walls or behind the fence is a totally different persona and a totally different picture.
There was just a big sense of relief when we finally got there.
We have to realize that everything we do is going to have an impact on probably a lot of people we don't even know.
One of the mandates of the CBC is to reflect Canada back to itself.
Not a lot of sustainable long-term movement that will effect economic change.
God bless, peace well, keep the faith, and walk good.